You are being watched, not by cameras, not by governments, but by the people around you. Every time you step outside your door, you enter an arena, a quiet one, an invisible one, a place where no one announces the rules, yet everyone plays. Status is evaluated, power is measured, weakness is detected, and most people don't even realize they are auditioning. The unsettling truth is this: you may already be painting a target on your own back without knowing it. Most people walk through life believing transparency is a virtue. They think being an open book makes them trustworthy. They think sharing everything makes them relatable. They think emotional exposure equals authenticity. Centuries ago, Machiavelli would have called that naive. He warned that people judge you not by who you are, but by what you appear to be. Everyone sees the surface. Almost no one truly experiences the depth. And if you expose everything, you leave yourself with nothing to protect you. No mystery, no leverage, no defense. Most reputations are not destroyed by evil actions. They are destroyed by leakage. People spill their emotions, their plans, their frustrations, and their insecurities into public space, and then act surprised when those same things are used against them. Every unnecessary word is a loose brick in your fortress. Today is about stopping that leak. This is not about becoming cold for the sake of cruelty. It's about becoming sovereign. It's about learning how to move through the world without bleeding power everywhere you go. By the end of this, you will understand why silence often speaks louder than explanation, and why the most dangerous people in any room are rarely the loudest ones. But first, you have to accept something uncomfortable. Your desire to be seen is often the very thing making you invisible. The ancient strategists understood this. So did the Stoics. The mind, they agreed, must be a fortress. But a fortress with open gates is not a symbol of virtue. It is an invitation. What follows are 9 specific behaviors that quietly strip you of authority in public. Some of them are obvious. Some of them feel harmless. Some of them are praised by modern culture as healthy. They are not. They are submission signals. This is not about becoming a sociopath. It's about understanding the difference between a king and a jester. One commands attention by withholding. The other begs for it by performing. And once you stop performing, people will change. They will stop pitying you. They will stop testing you. They may even start to fear you a little, if you're not ready for the isolation that comes with authority. This isn't for you. But if you're ready to reclaim privacy, gravity, and control, then listen carefully. Let's begin. The first rule is simple, but almost no one follows it. Never reveal your next move. The most addictive drug in the modern world isn't chemical. It's validation. And one of the quickest ways to get a hit is to announce your intentions before you've done anything. I'm starting a business. I'm getting in shape. I'm leaving this job. I'm changing my life. You say these things not because they help you act, but because they give you the emotional reward of action without the cost. Your brain gets the dopamine before the discipline. Machiavelli understood the danger here. The moment you reveal your intentions, you give others a map. Enemies, rivals, and even well-meaning friends now know where you're going, and once they know, they can interfere. They can discourage you, compete with you, or quietly hope you fail. Worse than that, you drain your own momentum. Speaking a goal out loud often creates a false sense of completion. You feel seen, so the urgency dissolves. Silence preserves energy. When people don't know what you're doing, they can't prepare defenses. They can't block you. They can't sabotage you. You become unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. There is something deeply unsettling about the person who disappears for months and returns transformed. New skills, new body, new position. No announcements, no countdowns, just results. Broadcasting your plans is often a disguised request for permission. You're waiting for nods, approval, encouragement. Stop asking. A lion does not roar before it hunts. It roars after. If you want to be taken seriously, keep your mouth closed and your work relentless. Let people speculate. Let them gossip. Their imagination will always exaggerate your power more than your words ever could. Mystery is not emptiness. It is potential. Do not trade it for applause. The second rule is just as destructive when ignored. Never complain about your problems in public. Complaining feels harmless, even justified. Everyone does it. I'm exhausted. My boss is incompetent. The system is unfair. Nothing ever works out for me. Listen carefully. Very few people care, and the ones who do often enjoy hearing it because it reassures them about their own stagnation. When you complain publicly, you send two signals at once. First, you announce that you are not in control. You present yourself as a victim of circumstance, someone being dragged by life instead of directing it. Leaders do not complain. They adapt, endure, or change the situation. There is no fourth option. Second, you burden others with your emotional weight. Even when people nod sympathetically, something subtle happens. They feel drained, repelled. You become associated with heaviness. People are drawn to strength, to momentum, to composure. Misery repels, even when it's justified. This doesn't mean you deny your emotions. It means you choose where to release them. There is a place for vulnerability, but public space is not it. Vent to a therapist. Vent to someone who has earned your trust. Do not bleed in front of an audience. In public, your posture should suggest stability, even if chaos exists behind the scenes. This is not deception. It is discipline. There is an old idea known as studied effortlessness, the ability to carry weight without advertising it, to make difficulty look manageable. There is a quiet respect reserved for people who endure without spectacle. When someone asks how things are going, you don't owe them a confession. A simple moving forward is enough. The third rule cuts even deeper. Never lose your temper in public. Anger is an emotion. Aggression is a tool. Confusing the two makes you weak. When you explode in public, at a waiter, a partner, a stranger in traffic, you are not demonstrating strength. You are demonstrating vulnerability. You are showing exactly how easily you can be controlled. If a stranger can hijack your nervous system with a minor inconvenience, you are not powerful. You are reactive. Machiavelli warned that a ruler may be feared, but must never be despised. Nothing generates contempt faster than emotional instability. A person who cannot govern themselves cannot govern anything else. When you lose your temper, you reveal your triggers. You hand over the blueprint to your emotional control panel. A strategic enemy remembers these things. They store them, and they use them later. Silence, by contrast, unsettles people. Imagine two leaders. One shouts when angry, the other goes quiet, speaks slowly, looks directly, says very little. Which one is more intimidating? The loud one performs. The quiet one calculates. When anger rises, that is your signal to pause. Do not speak. Do not react. Let the other person sit in the tension they expected to release through conflict. When you deny people the fight, they are forced to confront themselves. They look foolish. You look immovable. Master your nervous system, or someone else will master it for you. The fourth rule is one of the most misunderstood, especially in modern culture. Never apologize when it isn't necessary. We live in an age of reflexive apology. People apologize for speaking, for existing, for taking up space. Sorry to bother you. Sorry, but I think. Sorry if this sounds stupid. That habit may seem polite, but psychologically, it's corrosive. An apology is not neutral. It is an admission of fault. It places you in a lower position in the hierarchy, even when no wrongdoing has occurred. When you apologize without cause, you silently communicate, I am in the wrong by default. Machiavelli understood that authority depends on perception. A leader may make mistakes, but he must never appear uncertain of his right to stand where he stands. When you constantly apologize, you train others to see you as fragile, unsure, and easy to pressure. Over time, people begin to blame you automatically because you are already halfway to accepting guilt. This does not mean you never apologize. When you are genuinely wrong, you apologize once, clearly and directly, and then you correct the issue. No groveling, no repetition, no self-flagellation. But for everyday interactions, stop surrendering ground. If you're late, don't say, sorry I'm late. Say, thank you for waiting. If you disagree, don't say, sorry to disagree. Say, I see it differently. Feel the shift. One frames you as indebted. The other frames you as present. You do not need permission to exist. You do not need forgiveness for having an opinion. Occupy your space calmly, without apology, and people will adjust their behavior around you. The fifth rule touches a nerve that makes people uncomfortable. Never reveal your financial situation, whether high or low. Money is one of the most emotionally charged subjects in human interaction. It activates envy, fear, contempt, admiration, and resentment, often all at once. If you appear poor, you invite pity or invisibility. In a Machiavellian world, perceived poverty suggests incompetence or lack of control. People distance themselves from those they associate with failure, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. If you appear rich, you invite envy. And envy is not admiration's cousin, it is its predator. Envy turns friends into silent enemies. It motivates sabotage, resentment, and quiet hostility. When you flaunt wealth, you are not inspiring people. You are humiliating them. You are reminding them of what they lack, and eventually they will want to take something from you through guilt, pressure, manipulation, or destruction. True wealth whispers. It shows up in restraint, in quality over excess, in comfort without spectacle. Your finances should be a black box. Let people guess. Ambiguity protects you. If you are struggling, look composed, clean, organized, not desperate. Struggle should look temporary, tactical, and controlled. If you are succeeding, look calm, not intoxicated, not reckless. The goal is for people to assume you are doing well without ever knowing how well. This shields you from parasites seeking help and rivals seeking your position. Your financial reality is leverage. Keep it concealed until you choose to deploy it. The sixth rule removes you from one of the most common traps in social life. Never gossip or speak badly about others. Gossip feels like connection. It feels like bonding. But it is a transaction that costs you far more than it pays. When someone gossips with you about a mutual acquaintance, notice your instinctive response. You may listen, but part of you immediately distrusts them. If they're speaking about someone else to you, they will eventually speak about you to someone else. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must avoid being despised. Gossip earns contempt quietly and permanently. It signals boredom, insecurity, and a lack of purpose. It also reveals something more dangerous. You leak information. Information is power. Every detail you share is leverage you surrender. Strategic individuals collect information. They do not distribute it freely. Become a black hole. Let people talk. Let them vent. Let them reveal. Nod. Observe. Store the data. And say nothing. This creates unease. People sense that you know things, but they don't know what you've done with that knowledge. That uncertainty gives you control. Never speak ill of your enemies in public. It makes you look obsessed, bitter, reactive. If you must dismantle an enemy, do it through action, not commentary. Words reveal injury. Silence suggests indifference. And indifference is far more humiliating. The seventh rule requires restraint that most people lack. Never explain your philosophy. There is a temptation, especially during periods of growth, to preach. You discover a new discipline, belief system, diet, or worldview, and suddenly you want to convert everyone at the table. Resist that impulse. First, it irritates people. No one enjoys being lectured. Second, and more importantly, it creates a trap. The moment you announce your personal code, you invite surveillance. I never lie. I always wake up early. I live by this principle. Now people wait. They watch. And you will eventually slip, because you are human. When you do, they will not be forgiving. They will be delighted. By verbalizing your standards, you give others a measuring stick to beat you with. Machiavelli advised leaders to appear virtuous, not to shackle themselves to rigid declarations. Flexibility is power. Public rigidity is vulnerability. Live your philosophy instead of advertising it. Let people notice your discipline, your composure, your consistency. When they ask how you do it, then, and only then, offer a glimpse. Your life should argue on your behalf. Words are unnecessary when results speak. The eighth rule is the root of all the others. Never seek approval or validation. From childhood, we are trained to perform for praise. Parents, teachers, institutions, gods. We learn to equate worth with applause. But sovereignty begins when you sever that leash. Seeking approval is a submission behavior. When you fish for compliments, adjust your opinions to fit the room, or monitor reactions constantly. You hand control over your self-worth to others. You say, without words, "Decide who I am." Machiavelli understood that authority must be self-contained. Advisors advise, but the decision rests with the ruler. The moment you stop trying to impress people, something strange happens. They begin trying to impress you. Validation always flows downward. The one seeking it occupies the lower position. The one judging occupies the higher. The only validation that matters comes from alignment with your own standards. Did you act according to your principles? Did you execute? Did you maintain control? Praise and criticism are two sides of the same coin. If compliments can lift you, insults can destroy you. Reject both. The ninth and final rule is the most controversial. Never reveal your vulnerability or shadow in public. Modern culture glorifies exposure. Trauma dumping. Public confession. Tears as virtue. They call it courage. Machiavelli would have called it suicide. Vulnerability has a place. It belongs in private, with those who have earned access to you. Not in boardrooms, not on social media, not with strangers. The world is not a therapy session. It is a hierarchy. When you bleed in open water, predators do not feel empathy. They feel opportunity. When you reveal your deepest fears, insecurities, and wounds, you are not bonding. You are handing people instructions. If you want to control me, threaten this. If you want to hurt me, press here. You must integrate your shadow, yes, but you do it in private, in solitude, in discipline. When you step into public space, you wear armor. This is not about being fake. It is about being protected. Scars can be shown as lessons. Wounds should be hidden until they heal. Once you stop doing these 9 things, something strange begins to happen. At first, it feels uncomfortable, almost wrong. You speak less, you explain less, you complain less, you stop filling silence, you stop volunteering information, and people notice immediately. They will ask if something is wrong. They will say you seem different, quieter, distant. What they are really saying is this: the version of you they could easily read, predict, and influence is no longer available. The old you was convenient. The old you leaked emotional data. The old you explained yourself before anyone even asked. The old you made other people feel safe because you were easy to map. When that stops, it creates friction. People will test you. They will poke at you. They will try to provoke reactions just to confirm you are still the same. This is not concern. It is recalibration. They are trying to locate the handles they used to grab. Do not give them back. Hold the line. Silence is not emptiness. It is pressure. When you remove unnecessary words, unnecessary emotion, and unnecessary exposure, a vacuum forms around you. And into that vacuum, people project meaning. They assume depth, intent, capability. You begin to develop gravity. This is why the most powerful figures in any environment rarely explain themselves. They observe. They wait. They choose when to speak. And when they do, people listen. Not because the words are louder, but because they are rare. By sealing up your public persona, you remove the access points others use to manipulate you. You become smooth, hard to grip, difficult to predict. You stop performing and start observing. And this is where the real shift begins. When you are no longer busy trying to be liked, understood, or validated, you suddenly have attention available. You notice patterns, tension, inconsistencies. You begin to see the strings on other people. You see who is anxious for approval. You see who is pretending to be confident. You see who speaks loudly to hide insecurity. Most people are broadcasting far more than they realize. They talk themselves into exposure. When you become quiet, you become dangerous, not because you intend harm, but because you can no longer be easily played. This is what Machiavelli meant by effectiveness. He did not teach ruthlessness for the sake of cruelty. He taught restraint for the sake of survival. He understood that courts, then and now, are full of snakes. People smile, agree, flatter, and quietly wait for leverage. Noise gives them leverage. Restraint removes it. But there is a consequence to this path that no one talks about honestly. When you stop leaking power outward, you are left alone with yourself. No distraction, no applause, no emotional outsourcing. At first, this feels unsettling. Most people are terrified of silence, not because it is empty, but because it is revealing. When external noise fades, internal noise becomes audible. Doubt, fear, old memories, unresolved conflict. This is why many people prefer chaos. Chaos numbs self-awareness. But sovereignty requires stillness. You have learned how to close the gates to the outside world. The next challenge is ruling what remains inside. A fortress is useless if the king is unstable. This is where many fail. They master outward restraint, but neglect inward discipline. They stop reacting publicly, but continue spiraling privately. They become silent, but not centered. That is not power. That is suppression. True control begins when your internal state is no longer dependent on external input. This requires confronting the enemy within. Your impulses, your cravings, your need to be seen. These urges do not disappear just because you stop expressing them publicly. They retreat inward and wait. If you do not govern them, they will eventually find another exit. This is why emotional regulation is not optional. It is foundational. When anger arises, you do not repress it. You examine it. When insecurity surfaces, you do not announce it. You trace it. When validation hunger appears, you do not feed it. You starve it. This is not cruelty toward yourself. It is discipline. A ruler who cannot rule himself invites rebellion, and your mind will rebel if you allow it. Most people outsource their emotional regulation to the world. They rely on reassurance, attention, reaction, and noise to stabilize themselves. When you remove those crutches, you must build internal structure. Routine becomes essential. Solitude becomes productive. Silence becomes informative. You begin to notice how often your thoughts try to pull you back into exposure, to explain, to justify, to announce. Do not. This restraint sharpens perception. You begin to understand why ancient strategists valued patience above aggression, why they valued delay over impulse, why they trusted timing more than force. Action without timing is noise. Silence with timing is leverage. As your external presence becomes quieter, your internal standards must become sharper. You cannot rely on public reinforcement anymore. There is no crowd to clap when you resist temptation, no applause when you stay composed. Only you know. This is where character is forged. Did you act according to your code when no one was watching? Did you resist reacting when you could have exploded? Did you stay disciplined without announcing it? If the answer is yes, you are accumulating something far more valuable than validation. You are accumulating self-trust. Self-trust is the foundation of authority. People can sense it without understanding it. It manifests as calm, as decisiveness, as presence. It is the reason some people command rooms without raising their voice. They are not trying to be powerful. They are not trying to be respected. They already are, internally, and that internal alignment radiates outward naturally. As you continue this path, relationships will change. Some people will drift away, not because you harmed them, but because you are no longer feeding their expectations. Others will approach cautiously. They will test boundaries. They will attempt to provoke reactions to see where the edges are. Stay consistent. Consistency is more intimidating than aggression. When people cannot move you emotionally, they either respect you or avoid you. Both outcomes increase safety. This is the paradox Machiavelli understood deeply. Restraint creates fear without hostility, authority without noise, influence without explanation. But remember this: silence is not withdrawal. Privacy is not weakness. Restraint is not passivity. It is preparation. The goal is not to disappear forever. The goal is to choose when and how you appear, to speak when speech creates impact, to act when action creates change. A controlled presence is more powerful than constant visibility. This is how you survive hostile environments. This is how you move through competitive systems without being consumed by them. This is how you remain effective without becoming exposed. In the next part, we will go deeper into how to maintain this discipline long-term, how to prevent relapse into old habits, how to handle confrontation without revealing weakness, and how to operate strategically without losing your humanity. Maintaining this level of discipline is harder than learning it. Anyone can be quiet for a day. Anyone can restrain themselves briefly. The real challenge is sustaining this posture when pressure appears, when you're misunderstood, provoked, ignored, or deliberately tested. Because eventually, someone will try to pull you back into your old patterns. They will question your silence. They will interpret your restraint as weakness. They will attempt to bait you into explaining, defending, or reacting. This is where most people relapse. The urge to clarify is powerful. You want to correct the record. You want to be seen accurately. You want people to understand. But understand this, explanation is rarely about truth. It is about anxiety. When you explain yourself unnecessarily, you are not educating others. You are soothing your own discomfort with ambiguity. Power requires tolerance for misunderstanding. There will be moments when people misinterpret your intentions. They may assume arrogance, coldness, disinterest. Let them. Machiavelli understood that perception is never fully under your control. Trying to manage it exhaustively only weakens you. The stronger position is to act consistently and allow time to reveal coherence. Time favors the restrained. One of the most dangerous moments for relapse is confrontation. Someone challenges you publicly, questions your decision, pushes for justification. This is where emotional reflexes are most likely to surface. Your instinct may be to defend yourself with detail, to prove logic, to argue, resist. Defense invites escalation. Escalation invites exposure. The most effective response to confrontation is calm brevity, short statements, minimal emotion, no excess information. I've decided. That won't be changing. I disagree. You do not owe narratives. When you remain composed under pressure, the other person often loses control. They talk more. They reveal motives. They expose insecurity. You gain information without spending power. Another threat to discipline is success. When things begin to work, when people treat you differently, when attention increases, the temptation to loosen restraint returns. You may feel entitled to speak more, reveal more, perform more. This is a mistake. Visibility amplifies consequences. The higher your perceived status, the more damaging leaks become. This is why experienced leaders often grow quieter as their influence increases. They understand that every word now carries weight. Carelessness becomes costly. If you want longevity, your discipline must deepen with success, not relax. Then there is the internal pressure. As you detach from validation, an uncomfortable emptiness may appear. You are no longer receiving constant reassurance. The external mirrors fade. This is where many people unconsciously seek substitutes, attention, controversy, drama, just to feel something again. Do not confuse stimulation with fulfillment. The absence of noise is not loss. It is space. Use that space deliberately. Structure becomes critical here. Without external reinforcement, your internal systems must be reliable. Routine anchors you. Physical discipline grounds you. Solitude clarifies you. This is not about isolation from humanity. It is about insulation from chaos. Choose when to connect. Choose when to withdraw. Do not live permanently exposed. Another challenge emerges when people close to you demand access. Friends may ask why you don't share as much, why you're more private, why you seem different. You do not need to justify evolution. Offer reassurance without disclosure, warmth without vulnerability, presence without exposure. Not everyone deserves full access to you, even if they care about you. Boundaries are not punishments. They are filters. The people who respect your boundaries will remain. The ones who depended on your leakage will leave. This is not loss. It is refinement. One of the most difficult disciplines is resisting moral exhibitionism. As you grow more composed and self-directed, you may feel tempted to demonstrate superiority subtly through correction, sarcasm, or quiet judgment. This is ego in disguise. True authority does not need contrast. It does not require others to look foolish. It does not seek comparison. Let others talk. Let them posture. Let them announce. You are not here to compete theatrically. Remember, power that needs to be displayed is not secure. A critical skill to develop is delayed response. Not every message needs an immediate reply. Not every challenge needs instant resolution. Not every emotion needs expression. Delay creates leverage. When you pause, situations often resolve themselves. People reveal more. Tension dissipates. Clarity emerges. Speed is not always efficiency. Often, it is reactivity wearing a productivity mask. Strategic patience is an unfair advantage. At the same time, do not confuse restraint with passivity. When action is required, act decisively. Silence prepares. Action concludes. The danger lies in oscillation, being overly reactive one moment and overly withdrawn the next. Consistency is what stabilizes perception. Your goal is not mystery for its own sake. It is coherence. People should sense that your silence is intentional, not avoidant. That your composure is grounded, not hollow. This requires alignment. What you think, what you say, and what you do must agree internally, even if not all of it is visible externally. Integrity is internal first. Another subtle trap is using these principles to feel superior. This transforms discipline into performance again, just in reverse. If you find yourself thinking, "I'm more controlled than everyone else," you've already lost ground. Humility is not self-deprecation. It is accurate self-assessment. You are not immune to weakness. You are managing it. The goal is effectiveness, not ego. As you stabilize in this posture, something unexpected happens. People begin to seek your presence. Not your advice necessarily. Your presence. Calm is contagious. Stability attracts. People feel regulated around those who are internally ordered. This is leadership in its quietest form. Not command, not dominance, gravity. And with gravity comes responsibility. Restraint should never become cruelty. Privacy should never become manipulation. Silence should never become contempt. You are not withdrawing from humanity. You are choosing how you engage with it. There will be moments when openness is appropriate, when vulnerability is strategic, when speech creates connection rather than cost. Wisdom is knowing the difference. A closed mouth is not a vow. It is a tool. Use it intentionally. If you've made it this far, there is one truth that needs to be stated clearly. This path does not lead to emotional coldness. It leads to clarity. And the line between the two is thinner than most people realize. Many people learn silence, privacy, and emotional control, and then accidentally turn themselves into a wall. Not a fortress, but a barrier. Nothing gets in. Nothing moves them. And eventually, they can't feel much of anything at all. That is not what Machiavelli was pointing toward. The goal is not to disconnect from humanity. The goal is selectivity. True power does not come from never opening up. It comes from deciding when, to whom, and how much access you allow. That difference is everything. A weak person reveals themselves because they cannot tolerate pressure. A strong person reveals themselves because they choose to. You do not conceal out of fear. You withhold because you understand the value of information. Once you master silence, Speech becomes precise instead of compulsive. Words stop being a reflex and start becoming tools. At that point, you realize something most people never do. Power does not need constant expression to exist. A king does not wear a crown every moment of the day, but everyone knows who the king is. That authority comes from consistency. Consistency between thought, action, and boundaries. You don't need to explain your philosophy. People feel it in how you respond to disrespect, in how you remain composed under pressure, in how you refuse to rush into justification. And then a paradox appears. The moment you stop trying to control how people see you, you begin to control your impact on them. Calm forces others to regulate themselves. Silence makes people more careful with their words. Privacy invites speculation. And speculation always magnifies power. This is not manipulation. It is the natural outcome of not exposing yourself carelessly. But there is a warning here. If you only build armor on the outside and neglect the inside, you will collapse in isolation. When external noise disappears, you are left alone with yourself. No one to blame, no one to impress, no reactions to borrow stability from. And that is terrifying for most people, because without distraction, your internal state is exposed. This is where the real work begins. The only question that matters in silence is this: do you respect yourself, not in words, in behavior, especially when no one is watching? Do you keep promises to yourself? Do you stay disciplined without recognition? Do you act according to your standards even when it costs comfort? If the answer is yes, something shifts permanently. You no longer need validation. You become its source. And that is when you reach a level very few people ever touch. Stability that does not depend on environment. Praise no longer lifts you. Criticism no longer breaks you. Misunderstanding no longer rattles you. You stand still, not because you are rigid, but because you are anchored. From here, leadership changes form. You no longer lead by force. You no longer lead by persuasion. You lead by presence. You don't dominate rooms. You settle them. People feel safer around those who are internally ordered. Calm is regulating. Composure is grounding. This is influence at its quietest and strongest. But restraint must never become cruelty. Privacy must never become manipulation. Silence must never turn into contempt. You are not withdrawing from the world. You are choosing how to engage with it. There will be moments when openness is correct, when vulnerability is strategic, when speaking creates connection instead of cost. Wisdom is knowing the difference. A closed mouth is not a vow. It is a weapon that should stay holstered unless needed. Machiavelli did not teach these principles to make people evil. He taught them to make people effective. He understood that the world rewards awareness, not innocence. Timing, not transparency. Control, not confession. In a world where everyone is talking, the quiet become rare. In a world where everyone is exposed, the private become dangerous. In a world where everyone seeks approval, the self-validated become untouchable. This path is not easy. It demands discipline. It demands temporary solitude. It demands brutal honesty with yourself. But the reward is immense. You are no longer easily wounded. You are no longer easily controlled. You no longer need to perform. You become the still point in a chaotic world. And when you reach that point, whether you speak or remain silent, whether you step forward or step back, people sense one thing immediately. You are not here to ask permission. You are here to exist on your own terms.